Good morning. This is your introduction to algebra class for Friday, March 27th. I hope you guys are doing your best to stay not only engaged with your academics. I'm really proud of you. I know that watching a video is not the same as being in class and cutting up with your friends and having a good time, and I miss you guys so much, but I'm really proud of you. You have the greatest participation of any class in the high school and junior high. You have the highest percentage of people that are watching the videos, and I am tracking that, and watching the videos as well as doing the assignments. You'll notice a little change on today's, and that is, again, that you're gonna have a homework assignment, you're gonna have a quiz, and you'll have a lesson. Please watch the lesson first. It's gonna be to your advantage to make sure you do that and that you don't just like kind of skip through it, okay? And a couple of you have kind of fast forward the button a little bit, so please don't do that. It is to help you. I'm very proud of you for doing your best, though. Some of you have really surprised me that you have stayed focused. Now, you have a couple of classmates that my math class is not their favorite, and I don't understand that. Apparently, they're doing rather mostly science and history and skipped my intro class. I'm a little offended. But let's get all of you back on track and keep you guys at the top of the pile of most mature, because that is what this is. I believe truly that your participation, your watching and participating and doing the work, all of that is a result of maturity. And I hope that you are doing your best. God's been good to all of us, and I can't say that I've always liked or enjoyed every part of this quarantine. I don't like teaching without you. I don't like that my house didn't sell because of the quarantine, but that's okay. God knows, and God is always in control, guys. Today's my husband's birthday. That's the only big news in my house going on right now. He's home. He can't travel to Washington, D.C. to work, so he is working from home. So this is the first time in probably 6 or 7 years that he has been home on his birthday. So I'm gonna make a cake and all of his favorite foods tonight. So that's the only exciting thing going on at our house. So my daughter, Christiana, did make it home from college, and so that's it. Full house at my house, and gonna celebrate a birthday tonight. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you read your Bible, you prayed. If not, do me a favor, pause this video, go read your Bible and pray. Talking to God, reading your Bible is even more important than algebra. Yes, I know, I love algebra, but it is more important. Okay, today we're gonna talk about advanced ratio problems. Now remember, a ratio is simply a comparison of two things: the number of boys to the number of girls in our class, the number of 7th graders compared to the number of 8th graders, the number of 8th graders compared to the number of high schoolers. Okay, it's just two numbers that are being compared. Today we're going to compare our advanced ratios. Are going to be a little more complicated, not hard. Here's what you have to remember. You can't just say, oh, there's two numbers, let me make that a ratio. Because you have to read the problem and understand what those numbers are representing. It's very simple. I have my little handy dandy kindness matters sign that's going to be our help today. We're going to use the other sign so it's not confusing, but that's going to help us solve these problems very easily. Okay, I want you to look at the board, and I'm going to read this problem to you. It says a ratio of nuts to bolts is 11 to 2. If there were 260 nuts and bolts, so they're mixed together, in a pile, how many of them are bolts? Okay, so I have a ratio and I have a pile of nuts and bolts. Using that ratio, I should be able to come up with how many nuts are in that pile or how many bolts are in that pile. Here's what we're gonna do. We're not just gonna simply make a ratio. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to write down the information that we know. Okay, here's what we know. We know that there are 11 nuts. We know that there are 2 bolts. And we know that that total of nuts and bolts in our ratio, sorry about that, the ratio is a total of 13. Okay, so from our story problem, we knew there were 11 nuts and there are 2 bolts. Now, because we're intelligent 8th graders and we can add, we know that that means in this ratio, we have a total of 13. From this information, I can write 3 different ratios. What should I mean? I'm going to use my little handy dandy sign today. I'm going to cover up the total. I could say there's a ratio of 11 nuts to 2 bolts. I could say there are 11 nuts to a total of 13. Or I could cover that one up and say there are 2 bolts to the ratio of 13 total. Okay, so I can compare nuts and bolts, nuts to the total. I could compare bolts and total. I have 3 different ratios there. I have to decide which ratio I need, okay? So the first thing I have to know is how many, well, first of all, I have to know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the number of bolts, okay? So if I'm looking for the bolts, I'm going to compare the number of bolts I need to the total that's in the pile, okay? In order to do that, remember, we have to keep when we're making a ratio, taking 2 ratios and we're going to make them equal, we have to keep the top representing the same thing and the bottom representing the same thing. So in this case, I'm going to go, okay, well, if I'm going to compare bolts to the total, I have to say bolts to the total over here. So what is my bolts to the total of what I know? Well, go up to those 3 little things I wrote. How many bolts? There are 2 bolts for a total. That's going to get too low for you guys to see. I'm going to write it up a little higher. Okay, so there are 2 bolts to a total of 13. Okay, remember, we're doing bolts to the total. Well, how many total are there in the pile? There are 260. So I'm going to go back over here and say, okay, the total is 260. How many of those are bolts? I don't know. Okay, so now I'm going to multiply. 13 times x is 13x. 260 times 2 is going to be 520. Okay, now this is something that all of us know because we've done it. We've done these equations over and over and over. Okay, so now what are we going to do? We're going to divide by 13. And when we divide by 13, this is going to cancel. We're going to get an x here. And then we're going to say 13 goes into 520 how many times, okay? And it's going to go into it 40 times, okay? So if there is a 2 to 13 ratio, 2 bolts for the total, because remember I took bolts, I didn't need this one. I said, okay, I'm making the ratio of bolts to total, so it's 2 to 13. So then on the other side, I said, I don't know how many bolts, because that's what I'm looking for in my question, okay? But there were 260 in the whole pile. I know that because it tells me in my story problem. And then all I do is cross multiply. The easiest way to do this is to make your list of 3 things. That's always going to be the easiest. Make your list, and then it's very simple to follow along. Let's look at the other story problem Mrs. Turner put on the board. It says, the ratio of big ships to small ships is 2 to 9. If there are 242 ships in the harbor, how many were big, how many were small? One question at a time. So let's say how many are big, okay? So we have large ships. Let's erase this over here real quickly. Give us a little more room, okay? So we have big ships and we have small ships, okay? Since we have big ships and small ships, and then we're gonna have a total. So, according to the story problem, big ships to small ships is 2 to 9. So that is 2 big ships for every 9 small ships, making the total 11 ships. Then our question is, how many were big ships if there were 242? So we're going to take big ships, which is 2, put it over. I don't need anything about the small ships. We don't care about them right now. We're comparing big ships to the total, 2 to 11. Now, I need to make that equal to how many we know. Well, there are 242 ships in the harbor. So there's a total of 242. Of course, I don't know how many large ships there are, so I'm going to put X. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to cross multiply. 11 times X is 11X. 2 times 242 is going to be 484. 484. So I have 11X equals 484. So I'm going to divide by 11. This is going to cancel, giving me X. Well, 11 goes into 48 4 times, giving me 4 remainder. And 11 goes into 44 4 times. So there are 44 big ships. Now, if it wanted to know the second time, it asked me, how many small ships are there? Okay, well, there's 2 ways I could do that. If I really trusted my math, then I could simply just subtract. But your test, you know, is going to ask you to show your work. So you're going to have to take small ships, which is 9 to 11, because we're not going to care about the big ships. We're going to say, oh, small ships compared to the total. And then the total of ships are 242 with an X. And again, we're going to say 11 times X, getting us 11X. 9 times 2 is 18. 9 times 4 is 36, and 1 makes 37. 9 times 2 is 18 plus the 3. Okay, and now what are we going to do? We're going to divide. We're going to divide by 11. Okay, so 11 into this is how we're going to solve. I'm going to move quickly because I don't want to take up too much time here on this. So all we're going to do is divide. And make sure you compare, in this case, the big ships to the total. That's how we did this right here. Or the small ships to the total. If you will always write out your 3 factors, your ratio with your labels, and then the total, it's very simple. I happen to use a stick. You can use your finger or may not need that visual. But all you do is cover up the one you do not need, and it shows you all 3 of the ratios. Okay? Let's look at our problem set. Look at our problem set, okay? It says, Farmer Brown wanted to plant her farm in rye and barley to the ratio of 7 to 5. If she had 240 acres, how many acres should she plant in rye? How many acres should she plant in barley? Okay, let's think this through. If Farmer Brown wanted to plant her farm in rye and barley in a ratio of 7 to 5, write down your facts that you need to know. Okay? Okay, so let's do that real quickly. We're going to have 7 to 2. Is that what we said there? 7 to 5, sorry. 7 to 5. What does the 7 represent? Well, the 7 represents the rye. 5 represents the barley. Okay, so now what's our total? Well, our total is simply 7 plus 5 is 12. Now, we're going to look at this and we're going to say, what are we trying to compare? Go back to your story problem. If she had 240 acres, that's her total number of acres, how many acres should she plant in rye? So I don't need the barley, so I'm going to cover it up because I'm only going to compare the rye. Okay, she has 7 acres of rye for every 12 acres in her total. Okay, now How many acres did the problem say she had? The problem says that she has 240. That's acres total. Okay, so we put it on the bottom. Remember, both totals on the bottom, individuals on the top. Now, if you put the totals on the top, it's not gonna matter. You just have to keep them the same, guys, okay? And we're gonna put our X. Now, what are we gonna do? We're gonna cross multiply. 12 times X is 12X. 7 times 240, well, 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16. Now, all we're going to do is simply divide. We're going to divide each side by 12. And, of course, this is going to cancel. How many acres should she plant? Okay, she should plant 140 acres. Okay, 140 acres should be in rye. Now, how many should be in barley? Well, all I have to do is say, well, she had 240 total acres. She's going to put 140 of them in rye, meaning she's going to put 100 acres in barley. Okay, now, again, if you don't trust your work, do the second problem. And then make sure that, but the thing is, this X, and if you did a second problem, if you figured out the other ratio, the two X's should equal your total. Okay, that's how you can always check it to make sure that they are right. Let's look at number 2. The ratio of green ones to purple ones balanced on the ledge was 3 to 17. Write down your ratio. Write down what the 3 facts are that you're going to need to solve this problem. Okay? If you wrote it correctly, you're going to write down the ratio of green and purples are 3 to 17. So it's 3 to 17. The 3 is the green. 17 is purple. So the third fact is what? It's the total. Okay? So the total is 20. Move my 17 over a little bit. That looks like a 3 there. I don't know what it is. All right, that's our total. Let's go back to the story problem. It says, the ratio of green ones to purple ones balanced on the ledge are 3 to 17. If there were 400 balanced on the ledge, how many are green? Okay? So our total that we're going to be comparing is, because we're going to put green over the total, and that's going to be green over the total, right? Okay, so what is the green? We don't need this purple, so our green is 3. The total is 20. Now go back to your story problem. We're looking for the green, so that one becomes X. And our total on the ledge was 400. We have 400. Now, what are we going to do? Cross multiply. 20 times X is 20X. 3 times 400, 1,200. And now we have a very simple equation to solve. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to divide by 20. Okay, when we divide each side by 20, because whatever we do on the left, we must do on the right. This cancels, giving us 20 goes into 120, 6 times, so it is 60. There are 60 green ones on the ledge. Look at number 3. 4 times a number was 22 greater than twice the same number. What was this number? Okay, so let's figure out what our problem is first. 4 times a number was 22 greater than twice the same number. Well, number 1, the word is not in our story problem today. What word is? What word in this question means is? The same word as was. Is and was. Present and past tense. That's all. Okay, don't get confused by that. So, we have 4 times a number is 22 greater than twice the same number. Okay? So, how are we going to start? we're going to start by multiplying 4 times a number. 4 times x, okay? 4x, okay? Is or equals, look at the next part, 22 greater than, so 22 is going to come after, so greater than means we're going to put it over here. We're going to put 22. It's greater than something. What's the something? The something it says is twice the same number, or 2x. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to solve that by moving that 2. Get rid of this 2x. Going to subtract 2x from each side, giving us 2x equals, this cancels, 22. So 2x equals 22. Now, I can't leave it this way. I have to get rid of the 2. So divide both sides by 2. This becomes x equals 11. X equals 11. I hope that made sense. I'm most concerned, did you get the equation right? Could you do that equation on your own? Because you're going to have to do it on some quizzes. Okay? Let's look at number 5. Graph x is not less than or equal to -1. Well, the first thing is I can't graph that. X is not less than or equal to -1. The first thing I have to do is I have to make my statement a statement that is true, okay? A statement that I can graph, okay? So what am I going to say? If it's not equal to and it's not less than, what is it? X is greater than -1, okay? X is greater than -1. Now I can do that. Am I going to circle the -1 on my number line or color it in? I'm going to circle it because it's not equal to. And since x is greater than -1, I'm going to make my arrow toward the positive numbers, okay? Let's look at the next one. Number 6. What number is 140% of 75? Well, first, my question is, what's your pattern? What's the pattern? If you use the pattern, you're going to say the percent over 100 times the of equals the is. Okay? Excuse me. You're going to fill that in and solve your problem. Okay, tonight, your homework is online. Yes, you have to work it out on paper in order to solve it. Be very careful. Pay attention. Remember, don't put x equals. Okay? Your answers, when you do the homework, it's going to grade it for you as you do it. That way you can see what you're getting right and what you can see what you're getting wrong. I'll be able to see that as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to compile my list and we're going to go over some of the problems that we're having trouble with in another day or so. But tonight you're not going to do all 30 of them, but I do want you to use the online homework page to finish, okay? Once you've done your homework, take your quiz. Okay, so you have 3 grades today. You have watching the video, you have second, taking the quiz, and third, your homework, your online homework grade. Of course, if you do the homework online, you get 100, just like you would if you were in class, even though you may not get 100 on the answers. It's all about a learning curve, okay? I miss you. Have a great day.